It's now 6 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Regional Planning Commission public hearing meeting for Thursday, December the 5th. And as always, we always start out with the pledge, and I'd like to ask our attorney, Erica, to lead us in the pledge, please. Thank you. Appreciate you leading us. If you have a telephone or other kind of electronic device, I would like to ask you to either put it on vibrate or turn it off so you won't disturb us during our meeting. Sarah, I'll now come to you for roll call and determination of quorum.
Mr. Peterman?
Present.
Mr. Servan?
Present.
Mrs. Karcher?
Present.
Mr. Galvry?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
So you have 7 present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioners, in front of you, you have the agenda for tonight's meeting. If there's no changes or anything like that, I'll entertain a motion and a second. Denise?
So moved.
Second.
Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Present. Yes.
Mr. Servan?
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Galvry?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Jester?
Yes to approve.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of approving tonight's agenda.
I thank you, and I'll be coming right back to you for the introduction and public hearing instructions.
Thank you. This public hearing is being conducted for the purpose of giving the citizens of the county the opportunity to present testimony on the applications before the Regional Planning Commission. Everyone will have a chance to speak. All statements will be made from the podium at the front of the room. All testimony given shall be sworn or affirmed. For the record, please give your name and address. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification and inclusion in the record. The record will remain open for 2 business days following the hearing. For each application before the commission, the chairman will introduce the application. Then the applicant or representative will be given 15 minutes to present the application. Following that, those in favor of the application will be allotted 5 minutes each to speak. Then those opposed to the application will be allotted 5 minutes to speak. When everyone has had an opportunity to give testimony, the hearing on the application will be closed. No decision will be made by the commission tonight. The commission will hold a public business meeting next Thursday, December 12th at 6 p.m., at which time it will make a decision on the applications heard tonight. All information of record will be considered. A common vote of 4 members of the commission is required to make a decision. Anyone may attend the business meeting, but no new testimony will be received. The public notice of this hearing was published on November 13th, 2024 in the Delaware State News. And the Kent County Levy Court will hear these applications on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m., unless tabled by the commission or withdrawn prior to the Levy Court hearing. The Levy Court also meets in this room. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll now get into our public hearing for tonight. The first one on the agenda tonight is CS-99-11, Delaware State Fairgrounds. As chair, I'm going to have to recuse myself from participating in this particular application because I am on the board of directors of the Delaware State Fair. So I'm going to be turning it over to Vice Chair, Mr. Paul Davis. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, as you mentioned, CS 99-11 Delaware State Fairgrounds owner application is Delaware State Fairgrounds Incorporated and Kent and Sussex Fairgrounds, P.O. Box 28, Harrington, Delaware 19952. The engineer is Verdanis Scott Hoffman, 1060 South Governors Avenue, Suite 101, Dover, Delaware 19904. Zoning District, IL Light Industrial. Comprehensive Plan Designation, Industrial. Relation to the growth zone inside, present use is Delaware State Fairgrounds. Proposed use is same. Proposed building size, 38,831 square feet of new barns, 38,000 square feet of new event buildings, 9,111 square feet of additions to existing buildings, 800 square feet of new restrooms, 960 square feet of fuel canopy, and 4,000 square feet of building storage. Total, 88,731 square feet in total. Water supplied by the City of Harrington, SOAR, City of Harrington. Levy Court District is a 6th Levy Court District, Commissioner Hertz, and the school district is Lake Forest. Fire District is Harrington. Area and location is 245.744 acres on the south side of Fairground Road and west side of South DuPont Highway, South Harrington, Delaware. The property map is MNOO-179-0133 and MNOO-179.00-0138.00MN. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the application? Please give your full name, and the county attorney will have you swear yourself in or affirm. Thank you.
Scott Hoffman with Verdantis. My address is 274 Stonewater Way, Dover, Delaware.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, sir. You may proceed. If you have literature to hand out, take a minute and go ahead and do that. Okay, sir, you may continue at any time.
Okay, thanks to you folks for listening tonight. This application is for a conditional use site plan for the Delaware State Fair. So quick summary of our project. The last conditional use site plan that was before this council was in 2006. And since that time, all the previous projects and building area that the fair was seeking approval for previously have been constructed. So earlier this year, we met with the planning office regarding a couple additional projects that the fair would like to do next year. And we had some discussions about the future of the site, and it was a recommendation of the planning office that we go ahead and include any kind of additional projects that the fair would like to do. In the future, that's kind of been what we've been doing since we've been working with them. So we did that, and that's the subject matter of this conditional use site plan. We've included projects from next year out to 2032, and one project which we're really not sure about the timing of. If you're not familiar with the fair, there is basically 3 operations on the site. The annual fair, of course, and some events that happen also during the year, the casino, and then the Harrington Raceway. So all these projects are supporting the existing operations, those existing operations. Also with me tonight is Danny Aguilar, who's the general manager, and George Scoose, who is the facilities manager. So we do have some additional photographs of the different project areas. If it would please the commission, we can talk about those, or we can answer any questions you have.
Is that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
The only question I guess I have, maybe I should direct it at staff. There was the issue of the waiver for sidewalks. Has that been resolved, Sarah, or is that still part of the application?
To my knowledge, that is still part of the application, and it is under consideration for the Planning Commission.
Okay, do you understand about the issue about the sidewalk issue that you'd like to have waived?
I know that's on part of the previous applications in working with DelDOT to get the entrance approval. There was a request to have a sidewalk down 13. At that time, it was agreed that the fair was going to provide some additional right-of-way, which was done. So all that right-of-way has been provided, but the sidewalk has not been constructed. So we have not gotten any feedback from DelDOT on that sidewalk since we've been discussing this project with them now.
So basically, at this point, it's up in the air about the sidewalk with DelDOT.
Yes.
Okay. Any commissioners have any questions of the applicant? Making it too easy for me. Any commissioners have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would be here to speak in favor of the application for the Harrington Fair? Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? I guess that's it.
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising an electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. I see no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll now go. Is there anyone here that is in opposition to the application? If you are, please come forward, state your name, and you'll be sworn in. Anybody against it? Is there anybody against the application? Is there anyone against the application? Seeing none, it will be put on next week's agenda for a final vote, and we'll address the issue of the sidewalks. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to check with online to see if anyone wanted to speak in opposition online.
There's someone on the line?
That's fine. If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition to this application, please indicate by raising an electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. Still no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Good job. You had it way too easy, though. I don't know what's going on here. We're going into our second application for the night. This is application number CS-24-05. Application title is Elevated Storage Tank Tidewater Utilities, Fork Branch. Owner applicant is John M. and Ruth R. Stolfus, 1406B Forest Avenue, Dover, Delaware, 19904. Engineer is Beacon Engineering, LLC. The zoning district is IL and IG. Comprehensive plan designation is industrial. Relation to the growth zone is inside. Present use is vacant. Proposed use is water tower. Water would be under Tidewater Utilities, Inc. Sewer is non-applicable. Levy Court District is Mr. Angel. The third school district is Capital. Fire District is Cheswold Station 43. 28.4 acres or 0.92 acre on the project area on the north side of West Denny's Road. Is there someone here to represent this project? Please come to the mic. You can either be sworn or affirmed. Give us your name and address, unless you're an attorney.
Good evening, members. Elio Batista Jr., Parkowski, Girk, and Swayze, counsel for Tidewater Utilities. Here with me this evening is Mr. Robert Palmer from Beacon Engineering and Mr. Greg Curry from Tidewater. We're here this evening seeking a conditional use, a waiver of one of the code requirements with respect to...
Sir, you're going to be sworn in now? He's an attorney. Okay. You said you were a Parkowski. I've been away from the chair too long tonight, I guess. Go right ahead.
We're here seeking a conditional use, specifically a waiver of the sidewalk requirements. Before we get into that, I just want to put a little history. Tidewater's here for a water tank. We're seeking to install an enhanced elevated water tank to provide additional water infrastructure for fire safety and the residents in the area. Prior to this evening, we've been in constant communication and working with the staff. They've been very helpful and have provided some insightful guidance. Based on their recommendations prior to tonight, we sought a variance, which was unanimously granted with respect to the height of the tank. And as set forth in the staff's memo with respect to this application, the staff recommended conditional approval, and we completely agree with that and would ask that that be incorporated into the record. At this time, Mr. Palmer from Beacon Engineering will present the project and explain why we're seeking the waiver.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Bob Palmer with Beacon Engineering. Address is 23318 Cedar Lane, Georgetown, on behalf of the applicant Tidewater Utilities.
Mr. Palmer, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So, good evening again. I've included a few anecdotal pieces of information on this first slide, just to provide some background. The elevated storage tank is a 1 million gallon capacity, and as Mr. Batista said, the purpose of it is to provide additional storage for fire protection and the continued growth in this part of the Tidewater Utilities Service District. The water tower, the height variance that Mr. Batista referenced, was from the 75-foot maximum height. This water tower needs to be 160 feet tall, and I have an exhibit further in my presentation that I'll show you how we came about that. The tank area, the tank is actually situated on a utility easement that the Stolfus family granted to Tidewater Utilities, and in my next slide, I'll show that, and I'll talk about the waiver request. Here we go. So this is a aerial photo that was taken from the county's GIS portal, and you can see the tax parcel lines are shown in magenta. The Stolfus property is actually highlighted in red. That's the entire property. It's several acres in size, and that green box that's shown inset on the property, that's actually where the utility easement is located. It's 200 by 200 area. The property is just north of the Deltec Terry campus, and though we're very close to West Denny's Road, our access is actually through a utility easement up to Fork Branch Road, where I have it shown on this image. This is an excerpt of the conditional use site plan that was submitted into the record, and I colorized it just to provide some easy commentary and easy to read. The tank, we measured the setback from the equator, which is the largest part of the tank. That's up on the ball where all the water is stored. And we're 160 feet from the closest property line. The next closest dividing line is actually the right-of-way of West Denny's Road, which is 334 feet in a easterly or so direction. The green line that you saw in the previous slide, the property is actually currently wooded. That green line that runs around inside the easement area is actually the proposed tree clearing, and we worked with staff to develop a planting plan for mitigating that, and those green circles are the trees that are required to meet those requirements. The light blue line to the right of the screen, that's an existing water main that we're connecting into. The dark blue line is the water main that runs into the tank, and then the dark blue circle, that's again the equator of the tank. Inset on that, you'll see there's another two concentric circles. The smallest circle is actually the stem in the tank, and I'll show you an elevation of that in a minute. The next largest circle it's called the base bell, and that's actually the actual building footprint. That's the impervious area that we would be creating with the water tower, in addition to the access area and staging. This is an elevation that shows it's a line drawing of how the water tower will look. And you can see in that exhibit, we have a number of dimensions. The sign is roughly 140 feet above ground. That was one of the variances that we sought. And the top capacity line, the part that we actually need for the water pressure, is 143 feet above the ground surface. But the top portion of the tank that basically is the lid, the access hatches and stuff to the roof, that's what comprises the rest of the 160 feet of height. This tank, it's actually a tank that we constructed a few years ago in Sussex County for Tidewater Utilities at the Beacon Middle School site on John J. Williams Highway. And while this doesn't really have any bearing on this application, I'm just providing it as a real-world example because this is a 1 million gallon elevated storage tank, and this tank is 150 feet tall, so from a scale, area, and bulk, this is pretty much what we're going to wind up with at the after this project is completed, should everyone grant conditional use approval. For the sidewalk waiver request, we're requesting a waiver from the sidewalks installed along arterial or collector roads, which both Fork Branch Road and West Denny's Road meet those functional classifications. And we're also requesting a variance from sidewalk installed along private access roadways and entrances. As you can see in the photo, and this is a different one than I presented earlier, this photo is actually courtesy of Google. It's the image date was July 14th, so it seemed to be pretty appropriate to show. And as you can see in the photo, there's some of the road network within this industrial park have been improved, but currently there's no sidewalk proposed, or there's no existing sidewalk along any of the entrance roads or service drives. There's no sidewalk along Fork Branch Road or West Denny's Road. And the point of the waiver is this water tower, it's effectively an unmanned facility, not open to the public. It's surrounded by a security fence that only Tidewater Utilities and the fire department will have access to. It won't generate any pedestrians. There's no need for any pedestrians to walk to it to gain access. The operations staff will access with their trucks. And so that's the basis for the request for the sidewalk waiver. And in the staff recommendation report, staff did agree with that based on their findings, and they had some additional reasons that I didn't come up with, but we agree with staff. And with that, I'll stop talking and let you folks ask any questions you might have.
I think Mr. Davis has the first question.
You mentioned the fire department will have access to the gate.
Yes, sir.
What do you have inside? Do you have a fire hydrant, or what do you have to supply the fire department with water? Because that's a heavily populated location as far as the school's concerned, and industrial places. So I'm in the fire service, so I look at all these issues.
Sure.
You said they have access to it.
Yes, sir.
Well, is there going to be a fire hydrant inside, or are you going to put one out by the road so they can tie into it?
Sure. So good questions. The purpose for the fire department access is part of the fire marshal's requirement that all sites have access. And with the gate, there'll be we haven't finalized the design yet, but our anticipation with other towers that we've done for Tidewater Utilities that the gate will be fitted with a siren device so that when the fire department sounds their alarm, the electronic gate will open. There'll also be a Knox box on the gate so that in the event that there's power loss, they'll still be able to get in the gate the old-fashioned way. There will be a fire hydrant that's on premise within the utility easement area, and really the main purpose for that fire hydrant, while the fire department can connect to it, its main purpose is for tank maintenance, draining, basically operations functions. Within this district, and I have Mr. Corey from Tidewater Utilities with me. If I can't answer the question correctly, he can guide me. But generally, Tidewater has fire hydrants along all of their water mains in compliance with the fire marshal's requirements for spacing. And so there are a myriad of fire hydrants in this area already. So the only fire hydrant that we are proposing is the one for service and maintenance.
So you do have a Knox box, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes. Since this area is already developed with landowners and properties, how deep is the well going to be for this tank?
Well,
Well, you got to get the water from somewhere.
oh, the water will come from the water distribution system. This tank actually will the term we use in the industry is float. This water tower will float on the system. So Tidewater Utilities, wells, and water treatment facilities elsewhere in the district will provide the supply to supply this water tower and keep it full.
Okay, so you don't have to drill no well for this tank at all then?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay.
I do know that Tidewater is in communication with the Stolfus family about a well and treatment site. Is that right? No, but it is not at this location.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Galbraith?
Just a curiosity. So this particular tower is going to be used to augment what existing systems to meet the capacity demands in the area?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And without this, this particular tower to augment those existing systems, you're anticipating that there'll be a shortage of capacity for what's going on in the area?
There will eventually be a shortage, yes, sir. This is one of the essential facilities that Tidewater, through their systems planning, have identified. And when we first got involved with this, when we were first contracted for this project earlier this summer, this water tower was expected to be a 400,000 gallon capacity structure. And as Tidewater has moved on with their planning, by the time we made our submission back in October for this hearing, it came to be that 1 million gallons is really what is needed to meet their current plans.
So this actually is part of the infrastructure for that area as it continues to develop?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Servon?
He just answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Just inquisitive, what's the life expectancy of a tower like this?
Properly maintained indefinitely. Usually the main reason for demolition of a water tower is either it's the wrong height because of what was built in bygone eras. It wasn't maintained properly, and so the pitting and the rusting get to the point where the tower it's cheaper to demolish and reconstruct. So like I said, the tower could effectively last indefinitely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I don't think I see any more questions, so we appreciate you. Is there anybody else going to make any presentation, or is that the end of it?
I'm the last one.
Thank you, sir. You did a good job.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of this project? Please come to the mic. Third and final call. Is anyone here who'd like to speak in favor? Is there anyone on the phone, Mark, that would like to speak in favor of this project?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. I see no hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we'll go to the negative now. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak against this project? Anyone here speak against this project? Anyone here to speak against this project? So we'll be taking this project up next week, so we'll see you all next week.
Again, if there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition to this application, please indicate by raising an electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. Still no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
We'll go down to our next project for this evening. It's ordinance number, application number, and name, LC-24-30, CZ-24-11, Glaystein. Owner applicant is Dirk G. and Diana M. Glaystein, 29036 Arlington Road, Cape Charles, Virginia, 23310. Present zoning is AR, proposed zoning is AR. Relation to the gross zone is outside. Levy Court District is the 6th, Mr. Hertz. School District is Lake Forest. Fire District is Harrington, Station 50. An area is 10.1 acres. Area petition is 1.44 plus or minus acres. I see someone at the mic, so if we have your name and address,
Good
you
evening,
can be
Commissioners.
sworn or affirmed.
Dirk Glaystein, 29036 Arlington Road, Cape Charles, Virginia. I split my time more or less between Cape Charles and Harrington, and
Sir,
this is
Okay, we'll get you sworn or affirmed.
Would you, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
Thank you.
Go right ahead with your presentation.
So, actually, I spend more time in Harrington right now than I do down in Cape Charles. I have a business over in Milford. And this property has, I think, about 1.5 or so acres of IG. And it encompasses where the barn is towards the front, towards the road on that property. And I have no further need for it being IG. And I would like to request a change to AR.
Okay. Any commissioners have any questions for this gentleman? I know the site well. I grew up in the Harrington area, so the Pine Pits used to be a dirt road for a long time.
Yeah, it was known as the dump road.
You're exactly correct. Thank you, sir.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Anyone else here would like to speak in favor of this project and come to the mic? Anyone else like to speak in favor? Going to the negative, is there anyone here against this zoning change? Anyone here against? Third and final call, is there anyone here against this? And I'll ask for the phone now from Mark, either for or against, maybe make sure what they're saying.
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this application, please indicate by raising an electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. No hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We'll be seeing you next week. Next on our agenda tonight is ordinance number, application number, and name, LC 24-34, CZ 24-12, Military Housing Authority. Applicant and owner is MHA Land Holdings, LLC, 2416 North Glen Drive, Clovis, NM 88101. Additional contact is Davis, Bowen, and Friedel, 1 Park Avenue, Milford, Delaware. Present zoning is OC for office complex. Proposed zoning comp plan map is RM for multifamily residential, high density residential. Relation to the gross zone is inside. Levy court is the 5th, Mr. Sweeney. School district is Cesar Rodney. Fire district is Camden, Wyoming, Station 41. It's 4.7 acres located on the south side of Lebanon Road. I see somebody at the mic, and if you're not an attorney, we'd like to get you sworn and affirmed through your name and address.
Absolutely. Ring Lardner, Davis Bonafidel, Principal Professional Engineer, 1 Park Avenue, Milford, Delaware, 19963.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go right ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission and staff, good evening. With me this evening virtually are 2 of the principals of the applicant, MHA Holdings, LLC, Mr. Brennan Campbell and Mr. Drew Orzinger, and joining me in the audience this evening is counsel of the applicant. MHA Holdings, LLC's principals and members are all currently serving and are veterans of the armed forces, whose sole mission is to provide affordable housing for all active duty servicemen and servicewomen. As a veteran in Operation Iraqi Freedom and a retired Lieutenant Colonel of the Delaware Army National Guard, it is an honor for me to work with them on this project and perhaps others going forward. Before continuing, we received and read the staff recommendation report and asked that it be entered into the record and on our behalf so that we don't have to repeat additional information. The project is located on the southwest intersection of East Lebanon Road and Sorghum Mill Road. To the west and the south is the 12 Oaks subdivision. The immediate adjacent parcel to the west is zone RS1, and the parcel to the south is also zone RS1. The parcel is currently zoned OC Office Complex, and as noted in the staff report, it was previously zoned IG General Industrial and RS1. Additionally, the parcel tonight before you is the parent parcel of the 12 Oaks subdivision, as originally shown in Plat Book 44, page 26. Tonight's application is rezoning the property from office complex to RM, multifamily residential, and to change the comprehensive plan for neighborhood commercial to high-density residential. The application is a downzoning of the property, which means the future development would be less intense than what's permitted today. The RM zoning districts permit various options for residential units, including single-family, duplexes, townhouses, and apartments. The current zoning district does not permit residential units, but it does permit offices and other conditional uses on that parcel. Furthermore, tonight, I understand it's not about the site plan, but inevitably questions will come up. I expect some residents of 12 Oaks subdivision are here tonight. I do want to acknowledge that Ms. Sarah Neely Collins and her husband did reach out to me before the hearing, and I hope that as part of this presentation, I will answer some of the questions that they had asked. The acreage of this parcel limits what residential units could be constructed, and the applicant is currently considering a two-story townhouse to be located on this property, not large apartment buildings or the like. The access points will be determined by DelDOT as they have control and regulations of the various roadways. There are two options for access to this parcel. None of these are in a certain particular order. One access point would be the use of Great Geneva Drive, as this parcel has frontage on Great Geneva Drive, and again, as I mentioned earlier, was part of the record plan that had created the 12 Oaks subdivision. The other access point is Sorghum Mill Road, and those access points will be determined should this body favorably recommend and levy court approve the rezoning, would begin the discussion with DelDOT on the appropriate access to the site and its use. As this body is aware, should this rezoning be approved, a site plan is required to meet county code. It will be reviewed by staff. It will be reviewed by this body as well and other outside agencies. And again, the purpose of the applicant is to provide affordable housing for military service members, in this particular case, serving at Dover Air Force Base. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Mr. Jester, I'm here to answer any questions you may have of me.
And I'll just remind everybody, this is a zoning change tonight. It's not any construction plans or anything like that.
Yes, sir.
So I'll just remind everybody as we get into this. So I think some of the commissioners do have questions. I think Mrs. Karcher's first.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that this is pertinent to just the rezoning. Whenever there's going to be any type of rezoning, I think to myself, it's a horrible way to put it, but what is the most unpleasant thing that could be in this rezoning? So my question is, what is the maximum number of residences that could fit on this parcel? To the best of, I understand you can't be exact.
I don't even know the allowable density for zoning just off the top of my head, sir. I know what we're proposing, but I don't know the allowable density.
Allowable density is 10 units per acre.
Okay.
That was 10 units per acre?
10 units per acre.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Carter, just to further answer your question, the property is about 4.7 acres, so the maximum you could have is 47 units on this parcel at 10 units per acre.
Okay, I think Mr. Garvery down at the end has a question.
Yes, sir.
47 units as you would propose in terms of the townhouses?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know we're getting outside of the scope of what this is about, which is really just zoning, but it does weigh on my mind as to the ultimate use of the property, at least as it's intended. Not that it necessarily has to be followed, because once the zoning is done, the zoning is done. But the intention is to benefit service members.
Yes, sir.
And so it is your intention to have some sort of a priority system so that they actually will, in fact, get them, or is it just an intention?
To get further into the detail, and the two principal members are on the phone in case they wanted to opine a little bit further than I have, but it is a private partnership that actually work with the Department of Defense for some funding and some other capabilities to allow the units to be built and designed for the service members. It is private partnership. They do this nationwide. This isn't the first project. As a matter of fact, they were just meeting with the Department of Navy the other day when I was in a conversation with them. So this is an ongoing conversation with the Pentagon to provide this private partnership to provide the housing that our servicemen and women are in need of.
Right, so your relationship with the DOD about certain things, aspects of this make that priority pretty,
They have those
more
conversations.
baked in.
Yes, sir.
Good. The only other question I have is, do you anticipate being close to wetlands and waterway area? Do you anticipate any stormwater problems once you get the site plan?
We do not. We've had a preliminary conversation with Kent Conservation District. There's a ditch on our eastern property line that we have access to, and then that's the only stormwater we'll be required to provide. There is some potential wetlands in the waterway to the south. That'll be all part of the site plan, and compliance thereof will be determined at that time should we make it through this part of the process.
Okay, thank you very much.
I usually ask, and I forgot to, you agree with all staff recommendations?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think Mr. Davis has the next set of questions.
I guess the only question I had, being a veteran, when you use the word, and I think you use that terminology twice, that it's being, if it's rezoned, it's going to be for veterans.
Not veterans, Mr. Davis, active duty servicemen and women. So these would be airmen and airwomen for Dover Air Force Base,
Okay,
primarily, because that's the closest base.
Let's put it that way you said it. So it's going to be for the people at the air base. Are you going to rent to anyone else? I mean, I guess I'm more concerned about what guarantee can you tell us that that's going to happen? How do we know it's not going to be a Section 8? I mean, you was very clear about renting it to the air base people. And I'm kind of curious if you have a contract with the Air Force? Or is that something you're just anticipating?
I know they've had conversations with the Pentagon about this project to be near the air base. I can't, it's like everything else, Mr. Davis. You can't guarantee anything. I can tell you that the applicant is the owner, MHA Holdings LLC. Nationwide, they have multiple projects just like this through the process, and I doubt it'll be anything but housing for military members, given that's who they are in the principal membership of that LLC.
See, you opened the door. I didn't.
I understand, Mr. Davis. I'm here to stand proud of that door.
Don't interrupt me, okay?
Yes, sir.
I got the floor now. You say you want when I'm done. Got it? What I'm a little concerned about is that you're to the point about the airbase people. And I'm kind of curious about what makes you believe that. How do you, suppose someone else applies, isn't that discrimination? That's my question. I don't know where you're getting this back about the
I'm not
airport.
attorney on that one. I'm not even going to try to touch that. And Mr. Stefan is looking at me, and I don't know if that's even a question that I can. How does that?
Well, how about this? How about if you give me the answer, because I want it next week.
Mr. Davis, I think our attorney wants to address a question here.
I think the attorney for the applicant is here and probably better suited to answer it. I don't know enough details to give an opinion on that sitting here right now.
Well, I don't either. That's why I'm asking the questions. Thank you.
Right. So,
Sir, could you just give your name again so when our
Elio
secretary
Batista
drafts
Jr.,
it?
Parkowski, Gherkin, Swayze, on behalf
you.
of the applicant. Mr. Davis, with respect to your particular question, on the phone is the principal, Mr. Brenner Campbell, who is a retired lieutenant colonel with the Air Force, and through his contacts working with the Air Force directly and with the Pentagon, they've entered into certain arrangements, memorandums of understanding, so that a project like this only works if you can get the military people to fill out the housing. If not, then you're subject to market fluctuations. With respect to how it works, I would then cede the microphone to Mr. Campbell, who's online, to kind of give you a history of what they do and why they do it.
Okay, I think we'll get him to come on if he's on the phone, and he can give us his name and address and be sworn in by our attorney.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, you can unmute your line and give us your name and address so you can be sworn.
Hey, thank you. So it's Brenner Campbell and 2416 North Glen Drive, and that's Clovis, New Mexico.
sir, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll go ahead.
Yeah, so Mr. Davis, just to answer your specific question that you asked, we do work directly with the Air Force in this regard. I actually already have a project in place where we house 216 airmen out in Clovis, New Mexico, at Cannon Air Force Base at the Special Operations Wing that's out there. No desire on my part to be doing any Section 8 housing. The numbers were nailed, right? As far as RM zoning being 4.7 acres, the max density that could go there would be 47 units. That's it. And you cannot do apartments because it does not meet the threshold of 5 acres on that parcel to be able to do apartments. And so our intent is to do housing for the military. That's what we do. But in any situation, I mean, if I don't think Dover's going anywhere, but as banks always ask, like, well, hey, what happens in a BRAC situation? I can tell you our projects, we built National Green Building Standards. The exteriors of some of our projects, 100% brick, solar on every rooftop. And so we build a quality product because I don't want to have to do a whole lot of money on maintenance going forward. We want the airmen to have a great place to live. We do life skills training programs as part of our development. So it's called Adapt for Life. It's the Airman Dormant Preparation Training for Life. We bring in local municipal partners such as community colleges to give them training lessons on just different aspects of learning how to be a better citizen, from financing to legal to how to cook, how to clean. It's an issue just nationwide of some of those skill sets that just aren't there, and where the military does a great job of teaching our nation's defenders how to keep us free. They don't have the time and the bandwidth to teach them those other things. So there's no way we could guarantee anything of what it would be 40 years from now, 50 years from now. I can tell you MHA's intent for this parcel is to house airmen. It is a 3-minute drive to the gate with incredible amenities from the food line, the other things that, the airmen living there would need to have access to. And so, it's our hope and it's our expectation that these airmen are great neighbors, that, we want to keep Dover Air Force Base going strong. They have a huge housing need. When I've met with the folks at the city of Dover and the folks at the county, they brought up, hey, we're struggling for housing, as is most of the nation. We're struggling for housing. And one of the ways that can help assuage some of that, the burden on the housing there in that area, is we have a dedicated location where the airmen can come and live, instead of putting them out in 2, 3, or 4, however many, going in and renting a house and taking up a house from a family that needs it. This is a dedicated space where they can go. But our plan, is to, once we get a zoning change, start coming up with concepts in the townhouse realm that would work for this site to be able to house airmen. So I'm happy to answer any other direct questions.
Well, Colonel, I really appreciate your comments, because I do support the Dover Air Force Base. I've lived here my entire life. I've rented to Air Base people before, and you can't find a better tenant than those people, to be quite frank about it. But I may ask that question because I think some of the people in the audience tonight are really concerned about, is it one of those situations that 65% would be military and the rest of them would be anybody?
Right.
That's why I asked the question. Not that I'm against the Air Force, because I'm a veteran myself. And I was honorary commander at one time at the Air Base, and I support the Air Base 100%. I just wanted clarity so the public would know what's going on, and I think they have a right to know that. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, and so I'll answer that question directly. We are not looking to mix Section 8 with our military members. We're looking for this place to be 100% military. From your question about fair housing, when we have our tenant as the United States Air Force, our tenant would not be individuals. So our tenant would be technically the Department of the Air Force, and that way we know who's going to be living there. We're not trying to do we don't take any federal dollars for our construction programs, right? So there's no LIDIC, there's no low income tax housing credit stuff. We're not doing any of that. We're not asking for any of those bond permitting from the county or the state, the city. This is market rate. So when I say market rate, like nice quality, higher end product. It's product that should anything ever happen to Dover and airmen leave, that anybody would love to be able to call the place home. We have to have that as a potential exit strategy in case anything were to ever happen. Dover's not going anywhere. I think y'all know that. But those are answers I have to be able to provide to the underwriters at lending institutions.
Well, thank you, Colonel. I appreciate the clarity on that issue because I think people had concerns, and
Absolutely.
I have to ask the direct questions sometimes, so thank you very much.
Sir, I thank you too, and thank you for your service and your time. I think there's a couple more commissioners might have a question of you. Mr. Servoz,
yes, please.
Got a question of this gentleman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a while since I was involved with the housing office in the military, but if there was housing that they could provide, the military member was required to go into that housing. I don't know if that's still correct. They didn't have a choice to go into the community unless that housing area was full. Is that how this is going to work? It's going to be managed through the military housing office?
It won't be managed in the military housing office. This predominantly is our unaccompanied, that term unaccompanied airmen. So it's the single airmen that here. And so here, one of the biggest problems that across the DoD, and you're going to hear this, there's been Government Accountability Office reports that have come out last September. They followed it up this past October. So September of 2023, that report came out. The barracks, the dorm situation nationwide is it's in bad shape. And so Congress is not looking to dole out the estimated $50 billion to try and bring all the outdated dorms and the need for new dorms. The money's not there. And so they have looked to new ways to help provide for those unaccompanied airmen. And so they can direct them. These airmen don't get their housing stipend, what's known as BAH, Basic Allowance for Housing. They don't get that. Instead, they come and live in our community that we provide them. So that's why I mentioned our Adapt for Life program, that skills training program to teach them. Most of them are going to be in their early 20s. It's that age range. You can be in the 30s and still join and serve if you feel so called. And would encourage anybody to do that. We need people to sign up and defend our freedom. But we're not, it's not a basic allowance for housing situation. And so therefore it doesn't fall under the housing office in the projects that we do.
Thank you, sir. I don't think we have any more questions for the commissioners, so thank you for your comments and all. I'll ask the gentleman at the mic yet, is your presentation done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Then I'll open it up to the audience. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of this project and come to the mic? Anyone else like to speak in favor? Third and final call. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
If there's anyone joining us online that would also like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. I see no hands raised online at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. We'll then go to the opposition. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to this project? Please come to the mic and give us your name and address. And you can be sworn or affirmed.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ben Collins.
Sir, can you pull the microphone up closer to you?
Yeah, is that better?
Thank you.
Benjamin Collins, 526 Great Geneva Drive, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Collins, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all for allowing us to comment. Good evening. I reintroduced myself. I'm a community member of 12 Oaks since November of 2020. We're from Pittsburgh originally, and we were looking for a community that would have low traffic, room for family to grow into, excellent neighbors, and a safe neighborhood for our children to play in with little worry. And we found that in 12 Oaks. I'd like to ask, who in this room has moved to 12 Oaks for those same reasons? Raise your hand. Thank you. The character of this community is unmatched. Beautiful historic home at the entrance with only 42 homes. There's no public traffic, as we will only have one entrance and exit. Our children can play in the yard and cross the street with little worry. It's a great community with a lot of families with small children who have sought this out and moved into our community recently. I was surprised to get a letter several days ago outlining the threat to that very character we enjoyed the last 4 years. My wife and I immediately went down to the planning office to try to ease our concerns. When we spoke to a gentleman down there, who was very nice. He mentioned that this piece of land was originally zoned commercial, and the entrance and exit was from Swordman Mill Road. I know we're not here to talk about that, but they just wanted for that for the record. He advised the developer, according to him, that to reach out to the community of 12 Oaks to help the process go more smoothly. They only did the bare minimum of alerting 4 homes in the historic home legally. When we reached out to the gentleman on the letter to have more questions, the response was, "You'll get your answers at the meeting on 12/5. Thank you for calling us out, sir. And this developer is from out of state, working under the umbrella of the MHA. His actions so far tells me that everything we need to know at this point, and we're not very happy at the moment. The planning officer then explained that it would be military housing. However, he himself had no idea there's actually vacancy on the Air Force Base, and they are renting out to private citizens already. So that demand is simply not there. So as I represent the community of 12 Oaks, we respectfully request the zoning remains as it is. The entrance cannot and will not come through our community. And if we can pause these proceedings where we can speak with the developer to understand their full intentions. I look further to the further discussion on the 17th. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there anyone on, wait a minute, sir. There might be some commissioners have questions of you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Galbraith?
I'm just curious, after listening to, was it Colonel, I forget, Mr. Campbell, please forgive me, I forget what your rank is. It was Colonel, was it not? Yes.
Yeah, technically it's major. Chaplain is fine. Yeah.
Both sounds good. After listening to Chaplain Campbell speak and give his answers to our questions, I'm wondering if that has changed any of your thinking on what you just proposed.
No, it has not. Simply because we know the vacancy is on the base and it's not, the demand isn't there right now. So
the other part of my question then is that this parcel is open for development.
Sure.
And right now, what it gets developed into, who moves in and how they behave, is a big question mark that I guess will have to be addressed as things unfold. Whereas right now you have a bird in the hand. So that was why I was asking whether you were more comfortable with the answers that you got or whether you still have the questions you do. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
All right. Thank you for your
We'll
time.
go over here to the other microphone, to the young lady. Give us your name and address, and you can either be sworn or affirmed.
Hi, my name is Joanne Baird. I live at 201 Great Geneva Drive, Dover, Delaware. Have lived there for 24 years, almost 25.
Ms. Baird, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So good evening. Okay. So I'm currently the HOA treasurer. I'd like to echo the concerns expressed by Mr. Collins. It's my understanding that this is our only opportunity to have our concerns heard regarding the proposed zoning change. Once rezoned, I'm afraid we'll lose this opportunity. As a neighborhood association, we weren't notified about zoning changes. Instead, they just notified a few homeowners. As far as zoning and permitting an entrance into our development, I would like to know if any traffic studies have been done. Specifically, I have significant issues regarding the safety of utilizing the 12 Oaks entrance to handle a substantial increase in traffic associated with the proposed change. We have one narrow entrance exit under Route 10. It is an increasingly busy road. The crossover on Route 10 can be very difficult now, given traffic from the Grand Oaks development uses this crossover to turn around and head east towards Dover Air Force Base. I can't tell you how many times I've been at the top of the development. Nobody looks at me. They swing around. You know, I'm right there and waiting, and nobody looks. The entrance serves as our school bus stop. Younger children are usually accompanied by their parents at this bus stop because of the traffic hazard, so the entrance can be crowded by children and parents in the morning and the afternoon, and usually is. Usually is. Our neighbors are generally very careful of this consideration, and we have 42 households. Can you imagine 47 more? It's already busy. Any additional traffic into our development would improve increasingly hazardous. We are, by the way, single-family homes. There are no we're not allowed to subdivide our houses in any way, shape, without 100% of approval of all of our neighborhood association. In addition to primary safety concerns, I'd like to mention that the 1997 12 Oaks plot plan shows a gravel lane to provide access to a pumping station that ran at a width of 30 feet wide. This doesn't show the original one. I have it. Unfortunately, I don't have a slide for you, but I have it. But it shows a 30-foot wide gravel access for the pumping station. That's not a road. That's specifically for the pumping station. There are, as far as I know, only an easement for Dover Electric and another one for Bell Atlantic, and that's specific for those purposes. As far as I know, there are no others, and I have checked. Yes, they own land that abuts the 12 Oak. I mean, that is true. Our plan says, the original 12 Oak plan that was original states that all lots shall have internal subdivision shall access internal subdivision streets only. I am by no means an expert on the subject, but the proposed change seems to be at odds with the plan. We were supposed to be closed off. At a minimum, this change does not meet the spirit of the original plan. I would ask that any entrance into 12 Oaks be denied for safety reasons, and because that is what our original development contract was based on. In addition, we request a pause in the rezoning until the developer meets with the homeowners of 12 Oaks and provides a path forward which addresses our concerns. We have an address. We could have been notified. We have and have since 2003. We have had a mailbox, the same one. We understand that they are based in Clovis, New Mexico, but they are affecting us here in Kent County. I'd just like you to consider that this would drastically affect our neighborhood. Not to mention the wetlands that we also have adjacent and part of our neighborhood. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to remind you, ma'am, this is just for the zoning change.
Yes.
They'll be coming back to us. You say you don't have another chance at it. When they get ready to do their construction plans, they'll be back here again. That's when you can comment on construction plans. No construction plans?
No, they will, but it's not a public hearing. It's a by right use.
Yes. We wouldn't have an access.
Okay, understood that now. I understand. So I understand your comments and all like that too.
Okay.
So I certainly appreciate it. I'm going to open up to the other commissioners. Anybody have any questions for this young lady? Okay, thank you for your presentation. Mr. Garver, you have a question of staff?
Yeah, Sarah, I just had a, do you have any ideas to what the typical traffic density is for the current zoning of neighbor commercial, if that was to be developed as a commercial site?
I don't have trip data for what that could potentially be. No.
So
I could work with the engineer and we could come up with some estimates.
I'm just curious as to when we're looking at 47 units and the traffic that would have versus not having the zoning, and it ended up being developed as a commercial site with the traffic that's coming in all the time for those commercial enterprises. If we're looking at something as, comparably the same or one is greater than the other, I'm just curious because that goes to address the traffic issue.
I think I certainly can't give you that off the top of my head, but I can work with their engineer and we can come up with some estimates before the business meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garver. Sir, give us your name and address. You can be sworn or affirmed.
Derek Lawson, 441 Great Geneva Drive.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Dover. My wife and I are both born and raised here. My wife taught at Cesar Rodney School District for 28 years, and I recently retired from the Dover Police Department as a lieutenant after 26 years. I also have the same reasons as why we chose to live in 12 Oaks. We chose to build there in 2001. It's half-acre lots. It's one way in. It's one way out. As you've heard here tonight, their plan is for high-density residences that goes against the character of our neighborhood. He is approved for up to 10 units per acre with a total of 47 units. That is extremely high-density proposal. It will negatively affect the safety and character of our community. The vision statement of the Kent County Planning Commission states preservation of the rural and community character of the county and to provide a safe, sustainable environment. We all believe that the rezoning of this property will go directly against this plan. Potentially adding 47 units will more than double the amount of homes that are using our roadways. Our development does not have sidewalks, as you've heard. The kids have to walk to and stand at the entrance for the school bus. The entrance in the crossover Route 10 is already challenging, to say the least, at rush hour, and especially in the morning and evenings at high-end commuting times. The crossover, like I said, it's challenging, to say the least. Traffic that comes out of Grand Oaks that wishes to go east has to come to the entrance of 12 Oaks to make a U-turn. And likewise, anybody that's going east on 10 that wants to go into the shopping plaza, they also have to use a crossover. Now, it's been a while since I took driver's ed, but I don't know what they're teaching these days because the crossover is not used properly, and it causes a huge traffic problem. So I want to speak to the history of what's been the best intentions for military housing. I've lived here my whole life. If you know some of the worst developments in terms of crime, Capitol Park, Capitol Green, General's Green, even what's considered old base housing off Sorghum Mill Road, those were all military housing at one point. Now almost each and every one of those units in there is Section 8. That's what we're looking to avoid. I appreciate his intentions. I know that's what they want to do, but we know what it's ultimately going to become. So based on my professional experience, I'm confident that if you rezone this, it's going to have the worst intentions for us as a community, and it goes against the character of our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Any commissioners have any questions of this individual? Thank you again.
Thank you.
I'll come over here to the other microphone, give us your name and address, and you can be sworn or affirmed.
Hello, I'm Vincent Baranco. I'm at 1300 East Lebanon Road.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I actually own the historic home, Great Geneva. I'm on the corner. I think this will probably affect me more than anyone. My concern is just the housing, the company. If it goes Section 8, which we all know that, you know, if they're not making money with the air base, they don't have a choice. They'll go bankrupt or they'll have to sell to Section 8. That will ultimately, I'm worried about crime. Of course, I put quite a bit of work to keep the house up, and I really don't want my money to go down the drain. And as far as the community, everything they say, I'm for them.
Thanks, sir. Any commissioners have any questions? Thank you again. Appreciate your presentation.
Appreciate your time.
Young lady, give us your name and address, and you can be sworn or affirmed.
Carla Lawson, 441 Great Geneva Drive.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We, as a neighborhood, have some concerns with some of the discrepancies between commercial and residential for the parcel at this point, some of the legal classifications maybe not being consistent or clear. On the county website, the parcel is currently listed as 47 Great Geneva Drive, and it says it's residential. So that was kind of confusing because we're being told we're coming for rezoning from commercial to residential, but it's already labeled residential. So again, that is a concern. And I have a printout of that if we would need to put that on record. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can turn it in to sir when you like to, after you're done with your presentation.
Okay. So that was my first comment as far as some of our concerns. And then I also had been looking at the county code for map amendments in the process under Chapter 205. And so if it is already coded residential, that process was not followed. In addition, in looking at that code under the standard of review and the 4 points, we strongly believe that most of the 4 points of review to rezone are not met. And actually your question regarding the storm drainage specifically made me consider our property line as a neighborhood actually goes up to the marsh. We own the trees up to the water. So one of our concerns also is the high density nature of the proposal. What impact is that going to have on the storm drainage, sewage and things? And is that going to cause a potential problem for us as homeowners and our association? In addition, the character of the community piece, I think you've heard about that as well. The high density nature, 10 to 1, is extremely high. Even in Newcastle County character numbers, I think they follow like 5 to 8 max for high density. And then lastly, the rezoning would not promote the health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood and the surrounding area. And so in following that process, we would request that the rezoning be denied.
Thank you for your presentation. Anybody have any questions of this young lady?
Question. Yeah,
Mr. Mills?
Could the staff explain her first part of her statement that she made that it was already zoned?
I need to know what she was looking at on our website.
Parcel number when I plugged in on ownership and designation.
Okay. This is actually assessment information, not zoning information. The zoning is correct.
Ma'am, get back to the microphone if you're going to make any comments so we can get you and being recorded.
The zoning says residential.
Except this is not the official zoning map. So what I'm saying is assessment has it wrong. This comes from the Department of Assessment, not from planning, where we actually maintain the zoning map.
Okay, well, I
we
it's
can work with
confusing for a
assessment to get it
citizen when we
fixed.
go on the database and we see that and it already says residential. That's why I thought it was important to sort of bring that up.
Yeah, they do talk about mapping errors sometimes when you go on to different parts of the website. So you have to be careful about that. We thank you. Thank you again.
you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else here like to speak in opposition? Sir, give us your name and address. You can be sworn or affirmed.
Wesley Trout, 473 Great Geneva Drive.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to come up and echo my fellow residents' concerns. Once again, we know that it's about rezoning. We would like to revoke that rezoning, or at the very least pause it until we can come to a resolution with the builder. However, I did want to present some documents. I got a very rough map that I tried to map out the school bus stop and where the road will end up being affecting us. So I'd like to turn that in. And then I also have a petition that quite a few of the residents signed stating that they would also like to deny this rezoning and try to figure out a better plan for this access.
We appreciate that, and you can turn it over to Sarah, and she can give us copies. So we'll have it for our business meeting next week. Are you done with your presentation, sir? Yes, sir. Anybody here have any questions for you? Thank you again. Appreciate it. Anyone here in opposition? Name and address. You can be sworn or affirmed, sir.
I'm sir, it's Joseph S. Ugarte, 457 Great Geneva Drive. I'm probably the most, and that's my resident.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Sirs, madams, I'm probably the most junior resident there. I just moved in 2 years ago with the actual dream of retiring here. And it's actually kind of shocking to hear about this from a neighbor as opposed to the developer when I just, found out. That's one point. The second point is, and I think the chaplain mentioned the GAO report.
Sir, can you pull the mic a little
sure.
closer to her? We can't really hear what you're saying.
The chaplain mentioned the GAO report, and me being a federal government employee, knowing how GAO reports work, the GAO report was focused on DOD's mishandling of the barracks construction. It was an internal review of their development. They failed to do proper oversight. That was the failure of that report. It wasn't because they needed more housing. It was because DOD failed to do their job with no oversight. So that's the GAO report. I'm familiar with that report because I'm senior enough within the U.S. Department of State service where I've traveled around the world with the U.S. embassies and worked with actually veterans, and my heart goes to the U.S. Marines because I do work with the Marine Security Detachment Guard Service. So that being said, I echo the same concerns as my neighbors, but I also want to add one more concern that I have, which is the aquifers from the well water. Building all those homes and using my prior experience as a biology major before I decided to become a lawyer and then a foreign service, a senior foreign service officer with the U.S. Department of State, it's going to impact the aquifers within the well water system. I mean, to build that amount of houses. Now, the difference between residences and commercial estates, as we all know, is commercial spaces tend to stay open within a certain amount of hours. Residences don't. They stay all the time there. So that's another consideration we have to take into account. So with that, thank you for giving us this process of being heard. I appreciate it. And sirs, I know we're talking to the chaplain and they have their military stuff. You know, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. But we have a bunch of people in the community that have served, and I will continue to serve this country and proudly and honorably. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Anybody here have any questions? Again, we thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here like to speak against this project and would come to the mic? Oh, okay, sir. Come right on up. Give us your name and address and be sworn and affirmed.
Excuse me. John Armstrong, 142 Great Geneva Drive, Dover, Delaware.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, so help me God.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of the 12 Oaks subdivision. Came to the CR school district for my children. 3 of those children have ridden the bus from that corner. The CR district will not bring a bus into that neighborhood. So that being adjacent to a highway, my wife or I would sit with our kids, make sure they get on the bus safely. We would usually park right where one of the proposed entrances to the new development would be. So certainly that would cause some challenge to that activity continuing. Much ado was also made about sidewalks in some of the other proposals tonight too. Our neighborhood does not have any sidewalks. And I'd also like to point out that the density, the variance could have been applied for at RS. It's no less noble to have 8 houses helping the veterans or the servicemen and women's mission than it would be the high density number. So I suspect that high density is part of a calculus of economics to make this project viable. And then again, the divided median, people navigating that divided median certainly don't know how to operate it, so there's an added element of risk when you're out there waiting to get your kids on the school bus. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions of this individual? Thank you for your presentation. Last call for anybody else opposed to this project. Seeing none, then we'll be taking this project up next week.
Mr. Chair?
And we're going to ask about the phone next, Mark. So is anybody on the phone against this project?
So if there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition to this project, please indicate by raising an electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. I see no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Once again, I thank you all. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days to come here and let us know what your feelings are. We certainly appreciate every minute of it. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Now that the room is cleared out a little bit, we'll go ahead with our next on the agenda tonight. Our fifth on our public hearing agenda is LC 24-32, Stormwater Maintenance District Fees to amend Kent County Code Volume 2, Chapter 187. Having said that, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ordinance LC 2432 is effectively a housekeeping measure. Currently, the Stormwater Maintenance District standards call for the annual fee to be set in the county's annual budget. The levy court is considering a different fee structure going forward, and they want to be able to do that sooner than June. So what this does is call for the fee to be established in Chapter 128, which enumerates all of the county's fees, to be included then ultimately in the annual budget. So again, this is a housekeeping measure that makes it easier for the levy court effectively to do business. Just being moved.
It's just being moved, it's what is being done, and you're kind of cleaning up what's out there.
Exactly.
Any other commissioners have any question? Mr. Davis.
Just so I clearly understand, are we referring to stormwater management ponds? Is that what we're talking about?
In part, what the county for the past 10 years has managed a stormwater maintenance district program in which certainly any new project is automatically included. And for an annual fee, effectively the conservation district works with the county to maintain the stormwater infrastructure. Any projects that were approved prior to the establishment of the districts in 2014, they can petition to join. So it's effectively an insurance policy for stormwater within communities.
So I know there was a lot of discussion at one time concerning creating districts, and the county would do the maintenance on stormwater management ponds, and it's like subdivisions. And when I read this, I'm saying to myself, is that one of the things they're talking about? Because the homeowners association now, I think, takes care of it. Am I right or wrong?
No, and for the last 10 years, that's what this program has done. We monitor, by we I mean the Conservation District, monitors the ponds. We're also responsible for the conveyance system outside of DelDOT's right-of-ways. So that's what this program is.
Very good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions for commissioners? Seeing none, I'll either say, is there anybody on the phone or in the audience would like to speak on this subject? In favor?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this ordinance, please indicate by raising an electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Last call for in favor. I don't see anyone else in the audience and nobody's on the line, so we'll go in opposition. Is there anybody opposed to this particular change, either on the phone or in the audience? Seeing none, then we'll be taking this matter up next week at our business meeting. On tonight's agenda is LC 24-33, Solar Facilities Decommissioning Estimate to amend Kent County Code Volume 2, Chapter 205 Zoning, as amended by revising Article 6, Conditions of Approval, subsection 205-73. Sarah, once again, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Commission may recall a few years back, Levy Court adopted standards for solar facilities, both utility and community. One of the requirements with a solar facility is that the applicant provide decommissioning plans and the estimate to execute that plan so they can bond the future decommissioning. The Levy Court, as they've reviewed some of the community projects, have expressed a concern about the disparity in those estimates between projects. So they're interested in requiring third-party review. So effectively, the county could contract with a firm or a number of firms who could provide us a third party's effectively analysis of the decommissioning plan.
At whose expense would that be?
The applicant.
I do have a question that, you're looking 30 years out in space someplace with the economy and all like that. So how do you base these fees? What is
They're
it really?
updated every 5 years to account for changes in the economy.
I knew it was updated every 5 years, so it is like that. But you're going to have another party looking at those things, how you stretch it out, and exactly what it'll be equal to.
And what the actual cost estimates are, because we have seen a lot of disparity between projects. And certainly the staff doesn't have the subject matter expertise. So this simply allows the county to have a third party look at them for us.
Ms. Karcher, do you have another question?
No, you've already said it. So it's not just the levy court commissioners, it's also, your planning has seen disparity as well?
Yes, and certainly applicants have their own explanations about why their costs could be different, and they use different infrastructure. It could be completely reasonable, but because we don't have subject matter experts, this seemed like a wise course of action.
So, and these estimates are actually physically put in an escrow account over the years?
they're bonded.
And they earn as interest, and somebody manages that for the end?
They have to hold them. We make sure we're holding usually it's a letter of credit or a bond. And we have that.
Okay. I always wondered about that, so thank you for the answer.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions on this particular subject? Anybody on the phone? Excuse me, Mr. Peterman?
Okay, so this is clear to me. So all the estimates from years ago is going to be brought up to date? Those estimates are going to be retro?
This would impact anything going forward.
Grandfathered in?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that good enough, Mr. Peterman?
I don't understand. What would happen if one of them was taken down that was 10 years ago passed and then their estimate is way below? Do you just bring their estimate up to date, or are they still responsible for everything, or what?
Well, there's a reason we review them every 5 years, so we can continue making sure their estimates are up to date to reflect the current market conditions.
Everyone else is grandfathered in.
They still have to update every 5 years.
See, that's good.
Anybody on the phone, Mark, that supports this particular issue?
For those of us joining online, if you'd like to speak in support of Ordinance LC 2433, please indicate by raising an electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll go to the opposition side. Is there anybody in the audience that's opposed to this who would like to come to the mic? Anybody in the audience opposed? How about anybody online, Mark? Anybody online and opposed?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance, please indicate by raising an electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Then we'll be taking this particular project up next week. Thank you for your input. Last one on the agenda tonight is LC 24-35, area and bulk regulations inside the GZ. To amend Kent County Code Volume 2, Chapter 205 zoning, as amended by revising Article 5, permitted uses. I don't think there's no need to read anything else into that. Sarah, I'll turn that over to you again because I do have some questions on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The genesis of this ordinance was levy court inquiring to our department, what part can the county play in trying to effectively address the housing crisis. There is a housing shortage, both market rate and affordable. And you'll see in the memo that the most recent data we had for a single-family house, we're looking at a price of $340,000. For rents, we're ranging from $1,200 for studios to more than $2,000 a month for a 3-bedroom unit. Too many people are just priced out of the market. And in answer to Levy Court's question, what role can we play? It's to reduce barriers to the construction of housing. So what we're proposing are some modifications, again, only within the growth zone, to area and bulk regulations. So you'll see in the table provided within the ordinance, reducing lot sizes, reducing lot frontages, lot width, allowing some more flexibility in housing types. Our predominant zoning in Kent County is AC and AR, and that only allows single-family detached. So what this does is broaden it just slightly to allow duplexes as well, and then to allow townhouses in RS1 and RMH, which are slightly just a smidge higher density. Eliminates the impervious cover limits. We actually have worked with the Conservation District to ensure that won't impact stormwater design. And Jared Atkins has assured me it absolutely will not. They will simply calculate differently. It's exactly what they do in Sussex County, because Sussex also doesn't have impervious cover limits. Reduces setbacks. Also, Levy Court decided to allow for a slight increase in density from 3 units per acre in AC and AR to 3.5 units per acre in AC and AR, and from 3.5 in RS1 to 4. Again, the goal is to slightly liberalize the county's regulations to make it easier to meet market demand. And honestly, the housing shortage and the rise in prices is a supply and demand problem. We don't have enough houses. We have a lot of demand. Prices rise. You start adding to the supply, then we start pushing prices down a bit. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So just a question, if somebody comes to you with a minor subdivision in AC, they can have, the lot size could be 5,000 square feet. The frontage only has to be 50, with the lot width 50 at the line out along the road. But that wouldn't judge how many houses they could have on that parcel, because it would still only be a number of 4 minor subs allowable on a parcel unless it's a family member, correct?
The limit on the number of parcels you can create through minor subdivision, completely separate regulation, and that stays.
Yeah, and this, like you said, only does it in the growth zone
Correct.
overlay district.
Correct.
I think Denise has a question.
Yeah. This all makes sense, and I'm not against it one time. But my concern is, my understanding is that when we surveyed people, they want Kent County to stay mostly agricultural. They want that open land. What I am very concerned about is, is the next thing that we're going to do to, I don't know, widen the growth zone or something like that? I mean, you can see where my concern is. And yeah, I think this is great. I know what the demand is. And I'd vote for it. But I have a great deal of concern.
Yes.
Great deal of concern as to what's going to happen to our growth zone or the size of it.
I appreciate that concern. I do understand it. And if we can't pull it up live, I'll get the commissioners a copy of our existing map showing the growth zone and showing just how much land is still available. Because it's even on the margins, I don't know that I would recommend to levy court at this point in time to even look at expanding it. That could be something far in the future. But right now, we're not hurting for land inside. There's plenty of room for more growth.
So once again, when it comes back, I'm gonna, one more question, and I'll turn it over to the other commissioners. But if they do a minor sub that doesn't have sewer or water, then they go back to the other regulations that are in place, correct?
Yes, yes.
These here, as far as setbacks, widths, and all like that, are governed by having sewer and water.
Everything in the gross zone is predicated on having access to water and sewer, yes.
Okay, I think Mr. Davis has the next question.
I would just like to suggest that every commissioner look at this thing real deeply. I understand the rental market issue because I'm in the rental business. I understand the issues of excessive taxation we just experienced, with the property tax. But in my judgment, there's a difference between a shortage of houses as creating a problem with infrastructure, no roads, schools. I don't care if you wanted to put 10 houses on half an acre. What do you do when each one of those have children, has to go to public school system? It presents a lot of problems. I live down at Woodside on 13, and from Woodside Light to Rodney Village, you can't get out. It's so bad. The DelDOT is now going to put 3 lanes north and 3 lanes south. You know why? We've got too many people living here. That's why. We have a good state to live in. We have a lot to offer. Sussex County is out of control. Out of control. Go down to Route 24 and take a look at what's happening. Everybody's complaining about it. So I have big concerns about this. Until somebody really convinces me at this point in time, I'm not in favor of it because I think it's time that we take a break. We got to look at the school districts, infrastructure, and all this. Creating houses only benefits one group of people, maybe two. That's real estate people and developers. They benefit by it. You and I, as taxpayers, don't benefit by it. You know why? Our taxes go up. You have to have parks. You have to have all the amenities that go along with development. And you got to keep stepping the pace up. So I would just ask each commissioner, call your real estate people you know. I understand about the market. I know there's a shortage, but guess what? There's a shortage in the entire United States. I just read a report the other day. We're not the only one that's got this problem. It's down in Sussex County. It's statewide. And you look at what they're charging for taxation. There's a lot of issues attached to this. So I think everybody needs to take a hard look at it for the future because it's very concerning, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Galvry?
Yeah, I just have, I understand this is going to be an all or nothing thing, but I have two thoughts, Sarah. One is that kind of tying into what Commissioner Davis is talking about is that one of the things that seems to be, so I understand the intent here, and I don't have a problem with it on its face. It's just that some of the things that continually come upon us, and one of the things that has been alluded to that's going on in Sussex County is the lack of infrastructure. So on one hand, we want to have houses and we want to have more of them and we want to make them easier to have so we can deal with that supply and demand problem. But there seems to be always a disconnect that we confront here in terms of the infrastructure that can support this development that's coming along. So one of the things that would have made it easier for me to say this is cool is that it was contingent upon DelDOT doing some sort of feasibility study or DelDOT doing some sort of analysis of the infrastructure so that I know that that's not going to happen, but that is the thing that makes this a hard swallow is because of that disconnect between what we do here, what you do, and what DelDOT doesn't do it as it appears most of the time. And that's why we have an audience usually filled with people, because they're complaining not necessarily about the zoning, they're complaining about this infrastructure that isn't there, and they're wondering what we're going to do about it. And all we get to say to them is, well, that's not really what we're here to discuss tonight. And it's a frustration that this seems to only aggravate that frustration. It doesn't seem to mitigate it in any way. And the only other issue was just if you could, when you talked about the eliminating impervious covers, that kind of, there's an uneasiness about that. If we're not talking about offsets or something like that, I don't know how by eliminating impervious covers we get absorption of runoff waters.
Okay, Mr. Garver, yeah, go ahead.
Just to respond to first question first, the infrastructure. The comment about DelDOT is well taken, right? You're not the only ones who hear the complaints or the frustrations. But the county has been working with DelDOT on a series of what are called transportation improvement districts, and they're effectively traffic impact studies for larger areas. We're very close to being finished with 4 of them, and they encompass where we see the biggest demand for development. I can send maps to all of the commissioners showing you where those are. We should be within 6 months of those being done. So that's us trying to get ahead of that problem. When it comes to schools, because I know that comes up often, the county, oh my gosh, for more than a decade now, the county has a surcharge on every building permit that is allocated to the school district that development is in. So we've been trying to offset the additional demand that housing brings, and those funds go to the various school districts for capital projects. As to impervious cover, because the impervious cover is just for each individual lot. And what we see on the ground, and the Planning Commission wouldn't see these because they go to the Board of Adjustment, is regardless of what the limit is, whether it's 20%, 25, 30, 35, it is not unusual for your typical homeowner to come just up to that and a few percentage points over for normal improvements. And that necessitates the going through the Board of Adjustment and trying to get a waiver. And it's a small percentage, but it's a small percentage within every subdivision. Across the board, what you'll normally see is people well within 25%, 35%. And then if you couple that with the protections that are still in our subdivision ordinance, right? So whenever you design a new project, you can't subdivide floodplain, you can't subdivide wetland, you've got to buffer all of those. You've got a landscape, you've got a buffer. We're still doing everything we can to preserve the natural areas that everybody values. So I am confident that going forward, we're not going to see people sort of paving their entire yard. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I think Denise has a question.
Yeah, you caught me on the school thing. About 10, 15 years ago, my husband stood in front of Levy Court and had all the information as to how much each house, what it costs in order to, what each new house should be surcharged or whatever that's built to help the school districts. Whatever the surcharge is minuscule probably compared to what that calculation came to. So I have a big problem with that. But although I'm always happy when we're seeing an over 50 or an over 65 development, because then we don't have to worry about that. So we have everyone moves from New York and New Jersey and whatever down to Delaware. So we've taken up, what's happening is we're taking up the problems of New Jersey and New York and such. And I don't see how that ends in a good way. I just don't. Yes, I want people to have houses to live in. Of course I do. But, well, we know I'm a tree hugger, so there's that aspect to me that's never going to go away. I would be furious if they tried to change the growth zone. I'll be honest. I'll be out there. I'm not someone who goes and makes a big fuss about anything. They try to change the growth zone size. I'll be out there.
Anybody else have any comments before I give my 2 cents? Mr. Peterman.
I got a question on section 2. These residential principal structures within the growth zone overlay district. What's going to happen when you live outside the growth zone? Wasn't very satisfied.
Nothing will happen outside the growth zone. Nothing is changing.
No. What I want to say is, if we have a frontage of like 40 foot for inside the growth zone, if they have public sewer, and public sewer is not available outside the growth zone, which I wouldn't want anyway, but you got to have a lot more than 40 foot to build a house on.
But that's outside the growth zone. It is not at all applicable. It doesn't. This does not address anything
I'm just thinking
outside.
what you're doing here is only fair to the people inside the growth zone. I don't see where this is fair to people outside the growth zone.
There's a distinction between inside and outside.
Oh,
There
I
has been.
understand that, but I think they should also do something for people outside the growth zone. I'll just give you an example. I got 8 properties outside the growth zone that I couldn't tell them that I want to build so many houses on each one of those lots or whatever, and they said, well, it's too bad. But when they reassess it, they don't give you no slack on it.
That's not applicable to the discussion of
Yeah,
this
I
ordinance.
understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying that it is to me personally. I think it would be to whoever lives outside the growth zone if they've seen this and say, oh, you're going to do everything for inside the growth zone so we can get more people in schools on less property and raise everybody's school tax. Just with an assessment on one property, they raised me $300 this time, and for the school tax, not for anything else. That's after fighting them for 3 times. But I just can't agree with this the way it is.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I guess it's time for me to say a little bit of something because I've been thinking about it too. When I quit surveying last year, I know DelDOT was already requiring the transportation districts be put on your minor subdivisions because they wanted to know how close you were to them as you develop them. And I'm certainly proud of this commission because everybody has their own little niche they always want to put up with, whether it's environmental, fire-related, tree huggers, or whatever. I think we got a well-rounded commission, and I appreciate that. But what we see here and what we sit up here and hear many times, we always hear it, whether it's in the growth zone or outside the growth zone. When a development comes up, the developer's only required to do a few hundred feet in front of that development, and DelDOT never improves the rest of the roadways. We always hear this all the time. We see it. We sit here, and how many times do we get beat up by it? So I understand what you're trying to do here, and I'm not saying whether it's in the growth zone or not, but it seems like a lot of our problems are related back to not what we do exactly, but what other divisions do. DelDOT and all like that aren't keeping up their standards. I can see it with the fire departments. We can't keep up with the ambulance run. We can't keep up with volunteerism. So I'm going to study this real well between now and next week, but I really appreciate everybody's comments on this, and I don't know, I haven't made my decision up yet, whether I'm going to support it or not. So, any other commissioners have any other things they'd like to say? Then we'll close this until next week. Thank you all. Oh yeah, excuse me, I didn't go to public comment. I got so wound up here, I'm sorry. I guess my rednecks came through. So is there anybody else in favor of this, in favor of this? In favor?
In favor.
Give us your name.
Promise.
Your name and address. You can- sworn or affirmed?
My name is Sonia Starr. I live at 144 Hamilton Street, Wilmington, Delaware.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
As I said, my name is Sonia Starr, and I'm the Policy Director of Housing Alliance Delaware. Housing Alliance Delaware is a statewide organization in Delaware that works to advance housing opportunities, end homelessness, and promote vibrant communities. We are in support of LC 24-35. By reducing regulatory barriers, we open more housing options and increase housing choice for all residents in Kent County. We would like to commend the Levy Court for taking the lead in reducing the number of barriers faced by developers who are working to build much-needed housing units for families. Housing production is good for families, which drives positive economic growth. The decision to reduce minimum lot sizes, lot frontage, and width and setbacks, permitting duplexes in AC and AR zoning districts, permitting townhouses in the RS1 and RMH zoning districts will allow more housing to be produced that will be affordable to our neighbors, family members, and friends who live and work in Kent County. More affordable housing stock is needed. There is currently a statewide gap of 20,000 available and affordable housing units for our child care workers, our waiters and waitresses, our poultry workers, our fast food and counter workers, our home health care workers, our cashiers, our retail salespeople, our janitors, our cooks, our landscaping and groundskeeping workers, our stockers and order fillers, our nursing aides, our office clerks, maintenance and repair workers, to name a few. These people are Delawareans. They are not, for the most part, coming from New Jersey, Maryland, or New York, and they cannot afford to remain here in Kent County. If we want them to continue to work here, we need to provide affordable housing for them here. We are in support of LC 2435 because it will allow for more housing options to be developed, and we encourage you to pass it. Thank you.
And the group that you represented, one more time?
Housing Alliance Delaware.
I thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions for this young lady? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in favor of this would like to speak? Please give us your name and address.
Hi, I'm Bobby Slagle. My address is 178 Mustang Lane, Greenwood, on the Kent County side.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So again, I'm Bobby Slagle. I actually am a real estate agent, and I'm here on behalf of myself as a business owner and the Kent County Association of Realtors as the past president for that board. I am speaking here as our association is very much in favor of this, and we do again applaud Kent County for taking the initiative and being in the lead on this. This is very much a national conversation, and I very much appreciate all of the comments from each of the committee members here, because they are all very valid comments and concerns. This is a very large conversation that we've been having for several years in regards to affordable housing. And different ideas come into that conversation, especially here in Delaware. There's some comments that were made that concerns for, and we have a lot of people that move to our state because of our affordability. And that has a lot to do with our tax structure, and as well as the housing prices comparatively and property taxes comparatively to where they're coming from. And what that does, you can't stop the growth just because we don't have housing. They're still gonna come, but they're gonna increase the cost of housing for, like the previous woman acknowledged, our existing people, our existing workforce. It's very expensive, not just to rent, but also to purchase for our locals who have lived here all their lives, who've grown up here, for the youth that we need to attract to have a healthy economy and job market that is expansive across all sectors. And this is, again, within the smart growth, which I think is very, very sensible, to continue the focus on the infrastructure in the areas where we all acknowledge is necessary and needed, and not so widespread. While I can't disagree with the idea that some of us who live outside of the growth zone would like to do a little bit more with our properties, at the same time, we love having the ruralness of those areas as well. But the infrastructure has to be there, and we need to be able to provide those services, and having the increased density is extremely important to bringing the prices of housing down, not just in the rental market, but in the purchase market as well. So again, we're very much in a favor, and we encourage any conversations with any of our board members or association members if you want any sort of market data or anything supporting your questions or anything like that. Thank you.
Any questions for this young lady? Seeing none, we thank you for your comments. Last call for those in favor of this particular one. I believe I've seen this young lady there before.
I think you have. Linda Parkowski, 1442 Skeeter Neck Road, Frederica.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, I'm here as executive director from the Kent Economic Partnership. We're the economic development agency for Kent County. And this ordinance is really about jobs. And I'll tell you how it relates back to jobs. Our last two large employers couldn't find workforce housing in Kent County. We are in crisis. We don't have housing available for workers that are making $60,000 to $80,000 a year. And that's where we are. Everybody wants to keep everything the same, but Sarah is proposing, this is in the growth zone. Let Kent County be a leader. Let's not worry about what Sussex is doing or Newcastle's doing. Let Kent County be the leader on this. These are minor changes, minor. Let's take a little step, see if they work, and I think we'll be in much better shape if we do it. It's all about supply and demand. Duplexes are in demand. People in Delaware always say, oh, our young people have no jobs here. They have no place. They don't come back. This will allow younger people to buy townhouses, duplexes, maybe stay. Maybe your kids and grandkids will actually stay here. This opens up opportunity. So from an economic development standpoint, this is smart ordinance. So we please hope you vote in favor of LC 2435. Thank you.
Thank you, young lady. Mr. Davis has a question.
Hi, Mr. Mikowski. I have a lot of respect for you. I support a lot of things you get involved in, particularly creation jobs. You do an excellent job, and I understand that. I guess what concerns me, and maybe you have the answer, maybe you don't, what's driving the price of rental money? I know people's paying $2,500 a month. I know, and they can't afford it. So I say, why can't you afford it? Well, because it's a lot of money. So I think there's a difference between the number of houses you have and the affordability of the rental. And I hear a lot of people talk about that. I mean, I have a few rentals myself, but I don't get no $2,500 a month. So I'm kind of curious, as a general question, what is really driving? Is it personal greed that people want to get a lot of money? There's a reason why they can't rent, and that's one of them. Thank you.
You're asking why the rental prices are so high. Is that what you're asking? It's supply and demand. We don't have enough supply to push the demand down and reduce the cost. This ordinance does that. It allows the supply to grow And in time, the prices should go down. That's how this should work. And hopefully it will. And I agree with you. I mean, it's hard, for someone, especially a single person, to afford $2,000, $2,500 a month.
I just want to say one thing. It's not related to this.
Okay.
I heard your conversation a couple years ago about creating commercial zones along railroad tracks. I really hope you pursue that.
We are working on it. That is something
I like what you said. And I just hope that happens because there's a lot of merit to that.
We are. In fact, I was driving in Viola today for a site visit. And all along the tracks, I was like, we've got to get a hold of those landowners and do something about this. So, yeah, we're working on the airbase, joint use agreement, some land acquisition. We have quite a few things going on, but I appreciate the time that you allow me to come here and speak to you.
Thank you. We always appreciate you coming too.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir. I think you've already been sworn in.
I have.
So
for a different group, I'm going to use my home address, the same sworn in. So 81 Churchill Road, Milford,
and give us
Delaware.
your name too for the
Ring Lardner, on the Kent County side of Milford as well. I wasn't planning on speaking, but some of these, as you know, I've done land development in both counties, so I want to kind of bring some of that today. And personally, as my daughter's trying to buy a house, she is struggling to find affordable housing as well into a price range she can afford at the same, not range that Linda just mentioned, but a little less than that, but it's still a struggle. And markets change. You asked your question about the apartments. Well, our apartments are so more expensive because they stopped building them there for a while because the market changed. And today the market changes where down in Sussex County, someone mentioned Sussex County, well, they want the bigger houses down there, whereas up at Kent County, the smaller house may make sense. At a smaller lot makes sense. And on top of that, it also gives you variability and availability when you have wetlands on the site, woodlands. It gives you more options to design around it, to preserve the trees that Ms. Kircher had mentioned. So smaller lots do provide that. And a lot of younger people want the smaller house because they don't want to take care of the house. They still want to go out to the bar at night, or they want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings do trivia night. And they can't do that with a big house to take care of, or they don't want to take care of and cut the grass. So all those things change. So while I understand the empirical data of this, the lot sizes, but in reality, that's what some of the younger people want, and they're the ones looking for the affordable housing, the young teachers, the young nurses, and those kind of things. So from the TID standpoint, they're wonderful when they finally get there. They're wonderful for multiple reasons. A, it gives the public, here's what the improvements are. Here's kind of when they're scheduled for the next 20 to 30 years. Here's what the developer is paying for it. Here's what the state's paying for it. And off they go, and you're running. So it stops the question of, did you study this? Did you study that? It's been studied and done. So that's the advantage of that. To the impervious area question, that's all kind of for stormwater management. When we look at your lot areas, your stormwater management regulations, the open space areas, it all balances out in the end. At the end of the day, if you have a little more impervious in your lot, it makes up for it elsewhere, and you have your smaller lots because your density will still control what that overall impervious area is. To Mr. Davis's concern with fire department, we understand what it is. Some of it is money, a lot of it is with volunteers. We're running short of volunteers, so hopefully as people move here or their children grow here, maybe they decide to want to volunteer, whether it be police officers, firemen, military, whatever it is, so they kind of hope so. Growth has its problems, but it also has some of its solutions. So I just want to kind of bring that to the forefront as I deal with it both personally and development and design. So I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Going to the negative side now. Is there somebody online?
So
This is four.
Okay, so Mr. Ryman, I saw you had your hand up. If you can give us your name and number and be sworn, name and address and be sworn in.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Great. Mike Ryman, 309 South Governors Avenue, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Ryman, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I really appreciate Kent County taking a look at this. We are seeing this trend across the country to deal with the crisis that we have. And we truly do have a crisis in housing right now. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, in 1990, we built about 1 million homes per year nationally in the country. And, we got to about 2007, 2006, and we built about 1.8 million homes per year in the country. And of course, then we had the financial crisis of 2008 and the bottom really fell out. And we spent about, since 2011 to around the early 2020s, most recently, climbing back up. We just got back to 1 million homes per year nationally in the United States. So if you think about that, over 30 years later, and we're just now building the rate of homes we were building 30 years ago. 30 years ago. So this is a supply and demand issue. There's no question that we're in crisis because we are so behind. There have been numerous studies that have looked at how short we are on housing. It's in the millions. The ranges vary, but the average is in the 3 to 4 million units nationally is how short we are in terms of providing housing. And there's no question that has an impact on cost. To add to that, obviously, we've seen significant material costs through the entire supply chain as it relates to rents, as it relates to prices of housing. It is everywhere and it is tremendous. The affordability piece is a big issue. You heard some of those reasons here tonight, but I'll give you one example for myself. I had a young engineer. She graduated. She started to work with us. She was great. She enjoyed working with us, and she was renting. And she said, I'm sorry, I've got to go back. I've got to move in with my parents because I've got to save money to buy a house. It's going to take me a couple years to do that. And I really can't find anything where the rent's cheap enough that's going to allow me to save money. So she left. Her parents did not live near our firm. They were hours away, Western Maryland. And so, I lost an engineer because she had to leave and go move back in with her parents. It's a real issue. Teachers, police, all of those, I know you heard some of that from Ms. Parkowski as well, are struggling to find homes. My kids are in high school, and I hope that eventually they can find a home when they get a little bit older, get through college. I got some time, but hopefully we can right this ship and they can stay here and live in Delaware with their parents. Also, home building does create jobs. We had a study done a couple years ago that looked at the impact of housing in Delaware. It creates about 22,000 jobs, about $1.6 billion in economic impact, and about $380 million in tax revenue. So I don't agree that home building only helps developers and realtors. I am not a realtor, I'm an engineer. There's painters, electricians, my neighbor's an electrician, all of the folks in the construction industry and in the trades that contribute to these. It is across the spectrum. And I would challenge anybody to drive down the highway and see how far you get without finding a business that is in some way tied to the home building industry in the state. I don't think you would make it very far. A couple other interesting pieces of information. The National Association of Home Builders has done a study that for every $1,000 that you increase the price of a home, 140,000 people nationally would not qualify for a mortgage. In Delaware, that's about 371 families for every $1,000 that a price of a home goes up. Right now, about a third of the cost of a home is in the infrastructure to get to a lot before you even build the house. That's roads and infrastructure, et cetera, the cost of the land, interest, all of those things. It's about a third of the price of a home before you've even built the home. And some of the ways that you can bring the pricing down is density. Density is one of the biggest elements to bring down the price of a home, and time is the second, meaning getting through the process quickly and using land efficiently. That does have an impact on the cost and will bring the cost down over time. I understand the concerns. I think there's some valid questions there. But I think Kent County did something really smart a number of years ago, and that was that they created a growth zone and they put a plan together that said, this is where we want to have growth. This is where we're going to focus our infrastructure. And so the things we're talking about doing here are inside that growth zone, and that makes a lot of sense. So I don't think we lose our character in Delaware. I think we address a significant problem. I think this is a great ordinance. I want to commend the staff and the county for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reedman. Anybody have any questions for him? Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Anybody else online, Mark, that would like to speak in favor?
We have no other members of the public online at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll go to the other side. Is there anyone here in opposition of this particular ordinance? Anybody here at all? Anybody here? Anybody online? You said there's nobody online, correct? Then we'll wait for next week. We'll take this project up and we'll be addressing it next week. Thank you all for your comments. Going down to public comment. Anybody else like to say anything before we adjourn? Seeing none. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner comments? Any other business before the commission tonight? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Garvey made the motion and Mr. Peterman seconded it. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to adjourn.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Galvery?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes to adjourn. See you all next week. Thank you.